Titans training camp is finally underway. Justin, we have a lot to talk about. Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker spoke on Tuesday. Brian Callahan, Jeffery Simmons, and Cam Ward spoke on Wednesday. Plus, the Titans hit the field. What did we learn? We have takeaways from the opening of Titans training camp. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it.
How many days until we play our first game? Anybody know? 47 days. So we should feel the urgency every time we walk in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo. Justin, that was Brian Callahan speaking to his team on Tuesday in a short clip put out by the Titans. 46 days now until the Titans take the field for their first game, but between now and then, we are going to have a ton of stuff to cover. Titans have taken the field. Training camp is underway. We said this on Monday's show. Football is back. Well, football feels a little bit more back today than it did on Monday.
Football is back-er, if that's a word, today. Titans take the field, like you said, first practice training camp going Wednesday morning. Heard from Cam Ward, heard from Brian Callahan. The timeline was littered with training camp clips, practice clips, individual drills. Feels good to be back.
It does. So here's what I want to do. I want to talk about what happened today, and then we're going to go back in time a little bit and talk about what we missed yesterday with Borgonzi and Brinker's press conference and the information we got there. Lorenzo Carter retiring, what the Titans are going to do at edge. We'll talk about that stuff in a moment. But first, let's start with today's practice. One that Cam Ward described as, quote, mid for the offense in his post-practice press conference. But what made it mid? Well, it's your first day, right? You're getting back out there. You're knocking the rust off. Teron Davenport put out his training camp notes, and he said that during the 7-on-7s, it was like almost entirely quick game type of stuff. That's like quick three-step drop, balls out. So not a lot of deep developing plays, not a lot of highlight reel level plays for us to get super excited about. But based on what we've seen and heard, it sounds like the offense had a decent day. They popped a couple big runs between Pollard and Spears, each bursting through. Spears had a big catch and run on a screen. Alec Manor was, reportedly all over the place, just schooling these defensive backs, but not Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who also had a really good day breaking up a couple of passes in 7-on-7 and team drills. So everybody's out there. The entire team reported for training camp. There's only two players who are not on the practice field right now. That's L'Jarius Sneed and Lloyd Cushenberry, two guys that we discussed on Monday's show as potentially landing on the PUP list. They did land on the PUP list, and we'll talk about that again when we get to the second half of this episode and what that means for the team. But I bring it up to say almost 100% attendance out there at training camp. No holdouts, no contract disputes, and no nagging minor injuries outside of those two guys. A great place for this team to start, and they need to start well and continue well throughout all training camp for this to be a better season than what we sat through last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a normal, regular day. That's what you ask for. It's not always like that in the National Football League, right? Like two teams who are probably a lot better than the Titans, but you don't like seeing what's happening with Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati, Terry McLaurin in Washington. These are distractions and things you don't want. Titans aren't there, like you said, essentially perfect attendance outside the two guys on the pup. Traylon Burks is healthy and participating. You mentioned some of the guys who had good days. I agree with that. By all accounts, Jarvis Brownlee, Tajay Spears, Roger McCreary had a pretty nice day. Femi Oladejo, who we'll get to in a little bit. James Williams as well, who we'll get to. But yeah, this kind of comes across as a very much getting your feet wet day, right? Like not a whole lot of explosive plays, no 75-yard bomb from Cam Ward, no strip sack, no interceptions, right? Really just felt like almost like an orientation day, if you will, right? Hey, we're back. Take things a little bit slow, a little easy. That's why you see a lot of the quick game stuff, 7-on-7, things of that nature. But certainly you like the way it started in terms of no distractions, not a whole lot of injuries to talk about. Traylon Burks and Jarvis Brownlee were against each other on a rep, kind of collided. Both of them kind of got up a little slowly, but they were fine later on was the word out of there. So all in all, maybe an uneventful day, but in some cases a good thing, right? You've got your perfect attendance. You don't have any injuries happen on day one. I think the Titans will feel pretty good, and they know this is a day that they can build on moving forward.
Right. I think uneventful is a great way to describe it. And I think in this case, it is a good thing. Like the only events you want to see at training camp are big highlight reel level plays. Any other event is usually a distraction or a cause for concern, like an injury or something. So knock on wood that the Titans continue staying healthy in that department. Justin, I wanted to play, before we get too far into it, just that Callahan clip that I played at the top of the show. I pulled 2 other little sound bites from it. I just want our audience to know, like, whenever these pop up eventually during the season, I don't know when it's going to be. I'm going to use them as sound drops because I think they're hilarious when you take them out of context. Just the tone and the emphasis that Brian Callahan uses. Here's one of them.
I know what we have in this room.
And here's the other one. Whoa, yeah. Go ahead. You want to comment?
Did you see Stoney Keeley, our buddy, tweet? He had the best tweet. He tweeted that one saying, "The speech I give my cats in the living room before they go chase a fly in the kitchen."
Exactly. And this is the other one.
I believe in what you guys are capable of.
So, I mean, great speech from Callahan to kick off training camp, but hilarious when you pull those 2 quotes out of context. So just know, if you're a regular viewer of this show, where those are coming from when we eventually get to them. I want to go back to Cam Ward and the quick game really quick before we move on to other stuff. In his post-practice press conference, he talked a lot about how important timing is and how he's really focusing on hitting the top of his drop and getting the ball out as his way to sort of adjust to the new spacing in the NFL, the different hash marks, and the speed of the game being faster at this level, that when he hits the top of his drop, he wants to get the ball out. And I feel like that might be a general thing that he's thinking about all the time, but it felt particularly like an emphasis in today's practice. And this is coming on the heels of the Titans putting out episode 2 of their Titans of Tennessee series, this little like mini version of Hard Knocks that the team is producing, that they put out on Monday, I believe, which was all about timing. So definitely feels like, at least in the early portion of camp, the timing from the quarterback position and the wide receivers and the pass protection is all a major, major emphasis. And I think that's where today's like practice schedule or set of plays that they ran in these 7-on-7 periods, I think that's where it's coming from. And I think that's a great thing, because last year's offense, the timing was almost never in sync. And that was one of the major problems, is Levis would get to the top of his drop and look, and either the guy's not open or the timing's not there. And then he doesn't know what to do and he gets sacked. And it was a horrible thing for the offense last year. So this year, Callahan taking what he learned is putting a massive emphasis on timing. Cam Ward putting a massive emphasis on it on day 1 on the field. And hopefully we see that pay off once, they actually get to playing real football.
Well, start how you mean to continue, right? And start how you intend to finish, right? The footwork, the timing, him getting used to the hashes, as you talked about, spacing, all these little things. Now's the time to pick up on it, right? Now's the time to continue developing it. Your first training camp practice of the year, you're going to have a whole bunch of these. You've got, of course, as Cam mentioned, joint practices coming up, preseason games. Like, by the time you even get to those events, by the time the pads come on, right? Like, these are the things that you want to be second nature by the time that rolls around.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to say it. All right, I want to talk about maybe what was the most notable thing from this camp today, in what we called a fairly uneventful camp day, was who's starting. Because there's one major starting position up for grabs that we've talked about a lot. I guess there might be another one up for grabs that we haven't talked about a lot that we're about to get into, and these are both on the defensive side of the ball. Starting at linebacker next to Cody Barton in this practice reportedly was James Williams. Starting at edge, and this is the interesting one, alongside Draymond Jones, reportedly was Femi Oladejo. And Teron Davenport, in his practice notes, said Femi Oladejo is getting a lot of work. He's on the field a lot. I've talked about it almost nonstop for the past month or so that, this Titans defense ceiling is decided by how good or bad Femi Oladejo is and how impactful he can be right away. If they found a guy who can be a true edge rusher for them in the second round and who doesn't need all this time to develop and transition from Mike linebacker to an edge player, that would be huge for this defense. It looks like the Titans are giving him the first crack there. And then James Williams, we sort of expected, we didn't expect, but we sort of predicted that he'd be first. I think this one is less notable because we don't know what their plan is in terms of what this competition actually looks like. But those are the 2 big starting spots that seem to be at least leaning in one direction after day 1 of camp.
Yeah, like regarding James Williams, that piece of info came from Terry McCormick on Twitter. He said he was next to Cody Barton with the ones. I think you and I both have James Williams as the favorite to win that job. We've been saying that for a while. But I tweeted about this too. Like, it's a marathon, not a sprint at linebacker. Like, it's, we should react to it as we're doing right now, and we should discuss it. But, remember Brian Callahan talked about like wanting to see the pads come on at linebacker. Like, this is really, really early, especially for a physical position. That's kind of hard to gauge when there's not a whole lot of contact going on, right? So it does maybe indicate that James Williams is the early favorite. But I wouldn't be surprised if we come back tomorrow, the next practice, and Cedric Gray's out there with the ones. Like, I have a feeling this is going to alternate quite a bit. And if it doesn't, it just means they've got a ton of faith in James Williams being the guy that wins this job, which, again, you and I ultimately think is going to happen. But for now, this is just one we're going to continue monitoring moving forward. Regarding Femi, it's certainly interesting, but maybe this is silly of me, but edge is such an interesting position where, like, you want to be fresh and you want to rotate, a decent amount, especially when you don't have a Trey Hendrickson in your room. I think the Titans are going to use all three of these guys, top of the depth chart, fairly consistently, right, with Arden Key, Femi Oladejo, and Draymond Jones. But good to see that Femi's getting a lot of work at day one of camp. He needs it, right? Still a little raw, making that mid-season transition from off-ball backer at UCLA last year. And you and I have said it, like they've made this move to get bigger and stronger on the edge. Arden Key's the smallest one of the three from a weight perspective. So, maybe they see him as like I wouldn't say a designated pass rusher, but maybe he is the number 3 because we're going to see Femi Oladejo and Draymond Jones, who are bigger than him, fairly consistently on early down. So that might be the route this goes. We're going to talk about the abrupt retirement as well. But, if anything, it put Femi into a bigger role, potentially. Certainly, they've got 3 guys they can rely on right now. And because of Femi's size, stoutness, we've talked about how we think he's going to be a better run stopper early, maybe than pass rusher. You kind of put all that together, and maybe it's not so surprising that he's going to get a lot of work early in camp.
And this is another position you mentioned with the linebacker where the pads coming on is going to tell a better story of what's happening here. Obviously, the same thing goes for edge where you're, making contact with the offensive lineman almost every play. So we'll wait and see before we make any real determinations from what happened at day one. But I think the way you put it is best, that this might indicate who's in the lead to be starters at position, one that we knew was up for grabs and one that we kind of assumed was going to be Draymond Jones and Arden Key. Maybe that's not so cut and dry. I want to keep talking about edge based on what we learned yesterday. But before we do, Justin, I wanted to remind people, if they haven't gotten their copy yet, or if you haven't heard about it yet because you've been under a rock all summer, Titans of the South, the illustrated chronicled history of the Titans-Oilers franchise dating back to the inception of the Oilers, written by our very own Justin Melo, has a special 2025 re-release edition that includes a chapter on last season and this past offseason with the team acquiring Cam Ward. Remember, this book published before the 2024 season, which was largely not very notable and probably wouldn't have had a very long chapter in the book anyway, but you get to add a bit about the team drafting Cam Ward. And this book, which is only $25, including shipping, special price for this special re-release at titansofthesouth.com, also comes with a free gift. That number 1 overall pick quarterback illustrated playing card of him comes included with your purchase as a free gift when you spend $25, which includes shipping. Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit, but if you haven't gotten your beautiful coffee table book chronicling the history of the Oilers and Titans yet, you need to go get it, titansofthesouth.com. And another thing to remind people about is Sinkers Beverages' 40th birthday jamboree coming up Saturday, August 9th at 5:30 p.m. at the Basement East. There'll be live music, tons of free giveaways. It's an event you don't want to miss. It's only $10 to get in. Your ticket comes with 2 free drinks, basically pays the price of your admission right there. So get your tickets in the link in the podcast description or video description, and the link to Titans of the South is in the description as well. Justin, on this edge position here, we learned on Tuesday that Lorenzo Carter was retiring. And I think it's an interesting thing for us to talk about for a couple of reasons. Number 1, it's a surprise. Number 2, it's a second straight year that a Titans player has retired the day before training camp or right around then. And
after
number 3,
signing with them in free agency that year.
That year, right. It's like the second year in a row that a player signed with the Titans, got in the building, did some spring stuff, and then was like, you know what? I don't want to be part of this team. In fact, I don't even want to play this sport anymore. I'm done. I'm retired. I definitely think there's an aspect of like the training camp grind approaching for a player who may not, have a starting role or a very big role at all. Just being like, you know what, I've been doing this long enough. I don't want to do this. I want to go spend time with my family. I don't want to the body blow.
Last year it was Sadi Charles who was going to start. By the way, I just want to throw that in there. Like he was probably going to start, but yeah,
we don't know he was going to start. But yes, that's true. He was projected to be a starter. Anyway, Lorenzo Carter slated to be outside linebacker 3 or 4, depending on maybe. I guess we can definitively say 4 now that we know where Femi is in the pecking order.
Yeah,
no higher than 4, I think, for Lorenzo Carter. It doesn't really hurt the Titans that much outside of the depth department, because I think we talked about it on the outside linebacker edge episode last week that we did expect Lorenzo Carter to at least play some rotational snaps and be in the mix. But he's not a starting level player. He had 0 sacks for the Falcons last year. So we were saying we hope he can be better than he's been, right? Like we weren't necessarily counting on Lorenzo Carter to be a great player for this Titans defense. No. And Brian Callahan seemed almost dismissive of the fact that he was asked, how will this affect? Unbothered. How will this affect your edge position? He's like, well, I don't know if it'll affect it that much. I mean, we still have the guys at the top of the depth chart that we had, and we still have Ali Gay and Jalen Harrell behind them. So it is what it is. Mike Borgonzi did say that they might look to add someone at the position, but not somebody in the immediacy. And I think there's a few ways that they can address this hole, if that's what you'll call it, because they were all surprised by it. Borgonzi, Callahan, everyone said they were surprised by this retirement. But number one, obviously you can look at free agency where guys like L'Jarius Sneed, Jadeveon Clowney, DeMarcus Walker, former Titan, are still on the market. I do think with those veteran guys, like especially a guy like Clowney, who we know especially doesn't do training camp anymore. He's just like, he's graduated beyond doing training camp as an NFL player. If they are going to sign a veteran like this, I would not expect it to be anytime in the next 3 weeks. I think that would happen towards the end of August when, training camps are over and they're just bringing in a mercenary pass rusher, essentially, who like gun for hire. It's not going to be someone who feels like part of the team and not someone that necessarily even wants to feel like they're part of the team. They're coming in for the paycheck and to maybe go produce some sacks for you. The other thing, I'll let you comment on that. The free agency side, I know you have a specific free agent out there in mind that you would prefer if they did go that route.
Well, the interesting thing where I'll slightly disagree with you there is I wonder if their decision is influenced by, they've now got 2 spots open on the 90-man roster. Like with this Carter news and then Will Levis going on IR, that's just got to be official. But 2 spots on the 90-man roster, they're probably going to want to add something. Now, do they just add camp bodies or do they try to look for a solution at edge is actually going to be here, right, beyond camp? There's also a couple other veterans, Matt Judon, Preston Smith. Like, there are some guys available. You're right. Like, we speculated maybe Carter could have got into the top 3 at edge if Femi came along slowly. I agree with you. Comfortable in a place now to say that probably wasn't going to be the case based on how much work we see Femi getting. I thought he might have been like an early down run stopper, or he's got a couple seasons with 4.5, 5 sacks under his belt. You're right. Like it's not a huge difference, but it does make what was already a thin room even thinner, right? Like we were concerned about this room. Like I'll say this, I liked Lorenzo Carter a lot more than I liked Jalen Harrell or Ali Gay, right? And all of a sudden, like Jalen Harrell's 1 injury away from being the first guy off the bench in what's a position where you rotate, right? Like Jalen Harrell, Ali Gay, one of them probably going to play a decent amount this year if they don't go out and get someone better than them. So I think they probably should go get someone. I mean, we were talking about them maybe having to before this happened. So to me, it should add a layer of urgency to it. You teased the one that I think strikes me as a little interesting. I know everyone's focused on Clowney and L'Jarius Sneed. I like DeMarcus Walker. He played here a couple of years ago. He was really good. And if you remember, they signed him after he was like a failed 2nd-round pick, and he rehabilitated his career here. He had 7 sacks. He signs a bigger contract than he deserves, in all honesty, in Chicago. He plays 2 years there. They cut him before the 3rd year because they gave him more money than his play was willing. His play had earned, I should say. But he played well here next to Jeffery Simmons a couple of years ago. He's going to be cheap. He's younger than all the other options everyone's talking about. Preston Smith, Jadeveon Clowney, Matt Judon, yada, yada. And, another note I'll add to that is like they...
Yada, yada was a YouTube comment for a Meloism that I got to start dinging. So I'm going to start dinging it. Yada, yada gets a ding sound.
I deserved it. I earned that one. The other note I'll add here is he's listed at 6'4", 280, right? Like, we've talked about how they wanted to get bigger and stouter on the edge, and Lorenzo Carter was like 270. So not only is there a bit, a connection here. Everyone's gone when DeMarcus Walker was last year, but not Jeffery Simmons. He played well next to Simmons, and he fits the body profile of what they've looked for. So to me, I didn't watch him a ton in Chicago these past couple of years. Watched him a little bit, though. I thought he was okay. Not worth the $7 million a year they gave him, but what's he going to get now? $1.5 million, $2 million, what the Titans gave him a couple of years ago. So probably not going to happen. It's hard to predict these things, right? But I think the Marcus Walker's one that would, caught my attention.
Yeah, I have a solution for the Titans' edge problem, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Now, this is not an early down solution. This is a third down potential package.
We're trying to solve the pass rush when we talk about this. So.
Right. So here's your third down pass rush package that I actually think we'll see a decent amount this season. You get T'Vondre Sweat on the field at the nose tackle. You get Draymond Jones or Arden Key, or you put Jeffery Simmons out there on the edge. Now, Jeffery Simmons has talked about this. He talked about it today in his press conference. He's lost about 20 pounds. He said that, his new body composition profile should help him win one-on-ones, that he feels lighter, faster, and still stronger. Despite all that, he has no concerns about his ability to anchor in the run game, despite losing the weight. And this also ties into, I don't want to get into this right now, but I'm sort of talking about it, so I might as well. This ties into something Mike Borgonzi talked about that I find very interesting in his press conference, talking about body composition, and it's not just about body fat percentage, and that there is like a calculated science that they now have to determine how much muscle is on your body and how much lean muscle and not fat. And they have profiles that they've created for all the players and goals that they want them to reach when it comes to their body composition, and talking about how so many players took this to heart throughout the offseason and came in such amazing shape for training camp. But Jeffery Simmons is one of these guys who, using this new sort of body science, has his body in, for lack of a better term and a very strong cliche, the best shape of his life, could allow him to be an effective edge rusher. He talked about how in certain games, he talked about today, how in certain games last year, he would say, I want to get the edge on this rep or on this down. I want to slide outside and play edge. There is a very realistic package where you have a pretty strong foursome group in the interior between Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat and Sebastian Joseph Day and even James Lynch, who batted down a Brandon Allen pass in practice today, where some of those guys can be on the field in the interior. And Simmons can play outside alongside Arden Key, who brings a speed element to Simmons' more powerful element, or alongside Draymond Jones, so you get the huge bodies crashing the edge, or Femi Oladejo, who kind of blends both of those speed power combination there. I really think we're going to see Jeffery Simmons line up at edge on pass rushing downs a lot more than people expect. And when Brian Callahan goes into the defensive coordinator meeting room with Denard Wilson and says, I want to play Simmons at edge, and Denard Wilson says, why do you want to do that? Callahan's going to say,
I know what we have in this room.
Talking about the lack of edge players. Sorry, go ahead.
That's outrageous. I'm not going to push back too much on that. What I will say that maybe you're not fully acknowledging is I think the possibility of that package might depend on how effective T'Vondre Sweat is as a pass rusher this year. Because if I had, and we're spitballing here, but if I had to guess what a third down pass rush package might look like, and I'm very intrigued about Jeffery Simmons out on the edge. I love it, but I don't know how capable it's going to be. I almost foresee, Draymond Jones used to play in there, right? So I wonder if you get Jeffery Simmons and Draymond Jones inside, and you have both Femi Oladejo and Arden Key on the outside. That's probably your four best pass rushers. I have a feeling. Now, if you get Jeffery Simmons outside, it has to mean a guy like T'Vondre Sweat is giving you something notable on pass rushing downs. And you got to play someone else inside, right? If it's Draymond Jones, I just swapped the two of them in the scenario I talked about. Or it's like a Sebastian Joseph Day maybe instead of a T'Vondre Sweat. But then you start getting to instances where you're a little bit small in there. So it's really got to be third and obvious. So it depends. I think more commonly you'll see Simmons and Jones inside with Key and Oladejo outside. But if Sweat can play it, you get one of those guys out of the lineup and you get to kick Simmons out there. That would be really, really exciting to me. But
Yeah,
there are
and
a couple packages. They'll have to work through that.
And it could be James Lynch too. Like I actually like James Lynch as an interior pass rusher, maybe more than he gets credit for. A few little notes, Justin, before we get out of here. I don't have much else, but there are a few little things I wanted to talk about quickly. First of all, this came down 20 minutes ago from Aaron Wilson, literally as we're recording this podcast, that the Titans are working out defensive tackle Timothy Horn today and expected to sign him. So the Titans adding somebody to that. You talked about 2 open roster spots, make it 1, expected to sign him, but not to the edge group, to the interior of the defense. Yeah. And guess what? The Titans just signed somebody else, Jamar Jefferson, running back. Now the Titans have a full roster again after, Will Levis goes to IR, Lorenzo Carter retires. Titans fill those spots relatively quickly. Interestingly enough, it's not a quarterback or an edge that they add. It's a running back and a defensive tackle. And the running back, they had a running back on the roster last week that they cut, that they didn't bring back when they got an open roster spot. So it's an interesting little churning at the bottom of the roster.
I'm going to make a prediction here. Another roster spot's going to open. Doesn't make sense to me that they're signing a running back when they signed one a couple days ago. Like, I don't think you forgot. They replaced that released running back with another running back. I think his name was Sims or something like that.
Jordan Mims.
Sorry, it was Jordan Mims. Like, they don't need another running back. Do they cut Jordan Mims for Jamar Jefferson? I'm going to guess yes, and there's still going to be a roster spot open. We'll find out soon.
Interesting. Well, all right.
I want to add a couple quick notes. I don't know if you were going to touch on it or not as we get out
I
of
think
here.
the big one that we have yet to talk about that I really wanted to get to is L'Jarius Sneed's health.
Yes, that's what I was about to say.
Yes, we got a massive update from Mike Borgonzi on Tuesday that L'Jarius Sneed's health concerns, and the thing that's been keeping him out of spring practices even, confirmed this morning by Brian Callahan that this was keeping him out of spring practices, is not the mystery quad injury that we've been wondering about for 10 months. It's actually, he had a recent scope done on his knee, a clean out procedure on the knee that's always been requiring maintenance, that the Titans were well aware would require maintenance, and that he had that done in May. And that's what kept him out of OTAs. And tinfoil hat time, when L'Jarius Sneed said, "I'm healthy as I've been," I think he's referring to the fact that I just had a cleanup procedure. And now I feel like I'm going to be, once this is done healing, I'm going to be as healthy as I've been in my knee that's been giving me problems for years. So it's not the quad, which I think this is a very encouraging sign, because if this was still like he didn't have a recent procedure and he's just on PUP because his quad still isn't healed, we'd be like, this is a 4-fire alarm disaster. But the fact that it's just a cleanup procedure, take him a couple weeks to get back on the field. Borgonzi said he and Lloyd Cushenberry are week to week. I'm encouraged by this news.
Yeah, it's less frustrating. I think I'll say that, because probably the most frustrating aspect of this L'Jarius Sneed saga has been that it was hard to understand, right? Like, how can a mysterious quad injury be keeping you out for like 8 months, right? Like the same timeline of a torn ACL, a blown Achilles tendon, right? Like, that's what was really frustrating to us, is you literally hurt a quad muscle and this is taking 8-9 months. Like, so yeah, the new update is less frustrating. It's a bit more straightforward. I guess I'll end by saying I'm not quite as encouraged as you, because even though I get that aspect of it, I'm in full-blown see it to believe it mode with L'Jarius Sneed, and see it to believe it means I need to see him practice and see him play well before I believe. Like, someone asked Brian Callahan a great question at during the press conference today. Was it Easton who asked the question, said, how could you realistically, project him into a number 1 corner role after not playing since week 5 last year, and, this quad thing lasting as long as it did, missing all of OTAs and mandatory camp, mini camp that is, now coming back at training camp and landing on the PUP. Like, we don't know when he's going to practice. We don't know when he's going to play. As you noted, it's not, they're 46 days away from week 1. Like, really hard to just see him make a seamless transition from essentially almost a full year off, not even practicing, to just hitting the ground running. So maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, because hopefully we will see him on the practice field at some point. But it doesn't seem like that's going to happen tomorrow or the day after, right? Like, he's still going to be sidelined for several weeks. So I'm in see it to believe it mode. Yeah, you can call it encouraging that it's a cleanup and it's not the quad, but we'll see when it comes to L'Jarius Sneed.
I think that's fair. Like, it's encouraging that from a health standpoint, from a like, will he be available to play football this season standpoint is encouraging.
Right.
Is it encouraging from the sense of like, he's going to be ready to play week 1 starting on pup? I don't know, whatever. And not having played since week, whatever, 4, 5, 6, whatever it was last season, that he's going to be ready to play high level football again. Yeah, that's not as encouraging, but I think like it is sort of a week to week thing, and we'll just have to gauge this as we get through training camp where he's at, and acknowledge that it could take him a month or so into the season to really get back into like being a good cornerback one the Titans can rely on in football shape and like back to himself. So
does he even stay healthy long enough for that to happen is my other question. Does he not get hurt again? He's
never really had trouble staying on the football field in his career until last season. So I'm not necessarily, it's not like this isn't a Christian Fulton situation we're talking about here, who also started the training camp on PUP for the Chiefs. Anyway, flashback. But a couple more things I wanted to hit. Number one was a really fun interaction between Cam Ward and Jarvis Brownlee Jr. at the press conference after practice today. Cam Ward was asked about Brownlee and, complimenting him up and down, talking about how it's a challenge and a physical challenge every time he tries to target a pass his way, and how he knows he's going to play great football for them this year and get them some interceptions. And then he, as soon as he was done talking, this happened.
Cameron, how about the Louisville Cardinals, baby?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. We bust them ass this year, though.
Just a little friendly smack talk. Obviously, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. went to Louisville. And yes, if you follow the draft process at all, you're probably familiar with Cam Ward's incredible, I think it was like a 400-yard plus game against Louisville this year. They came from behind and then ended up winning by multiple scores. So fun little trash talk moment there. You love to see that kind of camaraderie. And again, the competitiveness that we've heard so much about from Cam Ward. You see it every time he's on camera, basically, you see that competitiveness.
Yeah, Cam Ward's reaction to the Will Levis thing in that same minute or two apart was hilarious, where they asked his reaction. I think he said, "I had no reaction," something along those lines, like I'm focusing on Cam Ward. And then he got into the player speak. Wish him the best, speedy recovery. He was helpful when he was here. But initially, I thought that clip was so funny. I have no reaction to it. But the last thing I'll add, I don't know if you were going to get to it. You seem to be getting to everything I wanted to add. Titans didn't sound like they were really going to add a fourth quarterback right now with Levis going on IR. They seem to have, as much confidence as you can have in Brandon Allen being the number 2 quarterback. I'm a little surprised, only in the sense of I'm not surprised that they might not add an arm to compete with Brandon Allen. But I thought they might add a fourth arm based on the fact that seemed to be the number of quarterbacks they wanted to have in camp in the preseason. And maybe it'll still happen, but it didn't sound like there was any urgency there. And I don't, if they do bring someone in, it doesn't sound like it's going to be someone who's actually going to push Brandon Allen for the backup role.
Right. Yeah, I think that's important to note. And yeah, Brandon Allen, as I mentioned before, confirmed as QB2. And Ward talked about how helpful it's been having Brandon Allen in the room as someone who knows Callahan's offense and helping him understand the why behind certain play calls. I thought that was a really interesting point, that it's like, this one is designed to get the ball out of your hand quickly and let the receiver pick up yards. This one is to help us get back on track after maybe a negative play or a penalty, or just understanding the why behind the play call will definitely help Ward. And Brandon Allen's there to help him do that. We've said it over and over again. This is why Brandon Allen is here. And I'm not that surprised. The only reason I thought they might add a fourth arm is because they had 4 before Levis's injury, right, and because of the history of Borgonzi in Kansas City with them usually carrying 4. But it actually makes sense. Give Ward every rep that he can get. There's no reason to bring in another arm for preseason or training camp. You can let Tim Boyle play the entire 3rd preseason game before you cut him and try to bring him back on the practice squad. And I don't think they need a 4th. So I'm glad you mentioned that. The last thing I wanted to talk about was the Titans of Tennessee, a little bit deeper. I mentioned Cam Ward being competitive every time he's on screen. This was a phenomenal 25-minute look.
I enjoyed it.
At the offensive side of the ball, and just the competitiveness. My favorite section was the quarterback section, how every single throw is a competition. Every single throw is graded as an A throw, a B throw, or a C throw. And how Cam Ward's sitting in that meeting room and they're trying to give him a B, and he's like, no, you said it was an A, or he said A. They all said A. How can you say B? And when they're out there competing in the accuracy drill, and every single throw is disputed by somebody, like, no, this was that way, or no, this was better than his, or whatever. Like, that was worth a point. No, that should be a point. Like, just every aspect of it is competitive. He wants to win everything he does. We heard about, the ping pong paddle incident with Calvin Ridley, and it's like, I just love that competitive spirit and that nature about him. And you really get a great look at it in this Titans of Tennessee episode. So if you haven't watched it yet on the Titans YouTube page, highly recommend it. It's well worth the time. And it's a really cool look behind the scenes at the meeting rooms and, the coaches watching film together, and just a really enjoyable, there's nothing really to break down from it, but I wanted to mention how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You guys should definitely go watch it.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Justin, that'll do it for this episode. Man, I think this team can do something this year because you know why?
I believe in what you guys are capable of.
I just believe in what they're capable of. No, I just wanted to play
I believe in what we're capable of. Is we're going to be
I believe
here.
in what you and I are capable of throughout training camp, continuing to cover this team. So thanks to everyone for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Drop a comment below. Anything. I don't know. I don't have a prompt for you today. Just drop a comment below. Hit me with some more Meloisms because I really love playing this sound and I just want to hit him every time he says something funny. So hit me with some, yeah.
You let us know in the comments if you got your order of Titans of the South. I'll say that because from what I understand, shipping is going out real soon. If you bought it, the promise was I think first week of September. It's looking like it's going to be a lot earlier than that. So you'll be getting your copies hopefully relatively soon. Publisher's in the process of packing it all up and shipping it to you guys. When you guys see that illustrated player trading card, Graver teased it earlier. He has seen it. I showed him it. He was genuinely blown away when he saw it. He was like, oh my, I need that. I want that. You guys are going to love the 2025 version of Titans of the South. The free gift that we're giving away would be worth it alone, I think, in all honesty. But we just threw that in as a free gift to you guys. You're going to absolutely love it. Please let me know in the comments below if you've ordered it. TitansoftheSouth.com. Shipments are just getting ready to go out. It seems like we're building excitement. We had a bunch of orders yesterday. Total fluke. I think that had to do with training camp starting and the excitement surrounding Cam Ward and the team in general. Let us know in the comments below if you've gotten your copy.
And did I mention this is a limited edition? There are not infinite copies available.
No.
So if you haven't got yours yet, make sure you get it now if you want to get one before they run out. And thank you for supporting our channel, for supporting Justin. The best way to support our channel, by the way, is to watch every video all the way through to the end, like it, and drop a comment below. That will help us continue to reach more people, more Titans fans. So thanks to everyone, and hopefully you'll join us on this ride throughout training camp. We'll be back soon with another practice to recap. Thanks again to Sinkers Beverages. Don't forget to get your tickets to Sinkers' 40th birthday jamboree at the link in the video description, where you can also find a link to titansofthesouth.com. All right, that'll do it for this one. Until next time, y'all stay safe out there and
tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.